So, picture this. You've just booted up Devil May Cry 3, you probably feel burned after the dismal previous entry that fails to replicate the magic of what makes the first one awesome. But you decide to give the series a second chance to hook you in. The opening cutscene starts with a duel between brothers, Dante and Virgil. Right away, the visual is dripping with style. The narration sets the stage, letting you know that the game's story will revolve around those two brothers. Once that in medias res is over, you see Dante being his dorky cool self, lounging in his office, eating pizza, and getting stabbed multiple times by scythe-wielding demons.
Huh?
You're starting to feel that it's going to be different this time. Later on, you step outside. After multiple enemy encounters, with a healthy dose of aura farming and frame mocking, as expected from this health demon himbo, you find yourself at the bottom of this massive demonic tower coming out of the ground. You've defeated your first boss, the whole game is ahead of you. You're ready for what's coming. And then there's this giant three-headed ice dog the size of a building that stands in front of you and immediately starts trying to kill you. Meet Cerberus, the first real boss of the game and, in my opinion, one of the most brilliantly designed bosses in action game history. Not because it's the hardest, and trust me, this game will remind you of that plenty, but because of what it is and what it's actually asking you to do. Today, we're gonna talk about why this big frosty boy is a quiet stroke of genius, and why the people at Capcom, whether fully intentional or not, basically designed a perfect boss.
It's showtime.
Alright, let's start with the obvious one first, which I think a lot of people kind of clock on some level but don't fully sit with. In case you need a refresher, Cerberus, in Greek mythology, is the guardian of the underworld, the three-headed dog who stands at the gates of Hades. His whole job, his entire reason for existing, is to make sure that the dead stay dead and that only those who are worthy can pass through. And I'm willing to bet that most of you already know that Devil May Cry is partially inspired by the Divine Comedy, and wouldn't you know it, Cerberus shows up there too, specifically as the guardian of the third circle of hell, where the gluttons are punished by constant black rain and icy slush. So it is, by definition, gatekeeper. Plus the dog also appears in the game in Mission 3. Wait a minute, Mission 3? The third circle of hell? Come on, that can't be a coincidence, right? Well, anyway, in Devil May Cry 3, another 3. Dante is trying to climb this massive demonic tower called Temenigru to stop his brother Virgil from opening a gateway to the demon world. The whole game takes place inside and around this tower, and I mean everything. Every puzzle, every boss fight, every showdown with Virgil, it's all up there. And what's standing right at the entrance? That's right, that darn gatekeeper. Cerberus isn't just a cool boss name that Capcom slapped on a three-headed dog enemy. The mythology is doing work here. Its placement at the beginning is like a warning before you get to enjoy any of what the game has to offer. The crazy weapon upgrades and the fun boss fights, among other things, you have to prove yourself to the guardian at the gate. In other words, you have to earn your way in.
Wow, I've never seen a talking mud before. You know, in a dog show, you definitely take first place.
Quick sidebar before we get into the actual fight. The MC3 is famously one of the hardest entries in the series, especially the US release, where normal mode plays more like hard in the Japanese version. Dante takes more damage, enemies are more aggressive, and if you die enough times, the game shows you that infamous easy mode is now selectable prompt. It's basically a rite of passage.
Are you kidding me? Oh my god!
That context matters for Cerberus because this isn't a game that's going to go easy on you, and neither is the dog. So, by the time you actually reach Cerberus, you've had exactly 2 missions under your belt. You fought some basic demons, done a couple of aerial combos, interacted with the environment for more creative attacks, and maybe hit your first S rank. The tutorial pop-ups have been holding your hand. You've got a rough sense of how Dante moves and how he attacks. And then, Cerberus shows up. Here's the thing about the Cerberus fight. It punishes passivity. If you just stand too long in one place, spamming your shots or mashing the attack button like it's a basic enemy, you're gonna get absolutely wrecked. and its ice armor suddenly throws you up for a loop, because up to that point, there's no enemy with a coat of armor that you need to chip away first before you can inflict damage. As for how it attacks, Cerberus has 3 distinct attack patterns, depending on which head is at the center. Each attack pattern demands different responses from you. The red-eyed head shoots ice beams that cover a portion of the arena, the yellow-eyed head drops multiple icicles, and the blue-eyed head shoots ice projectiles to freeze you. The dog also swipes its paws, rams at you, and does a sudden forward lunge if you're being too close to it for too long, which I guarantee will often catch you if you panic roll in the wrong direction. And at a certain point, once you inflict enough damage, the second phase begins as Cerberus turns red. The frequency of the attacks will increase, which might mess with your footing and add another variable that you have to manage. Each time a head goes down, you feel the progress. It's a literal piece of the boss leaving the fight. One last attack pattern to worry about. Increased chance to get out of this alive. That's incredibly satisfying in a way that a lot of modern games actually forget to do. Plus, the 3 heads also tie back to the mythology I mentioned earlier, right? The original Cerberus had 3 heads for a reason, so that souls in the underworld couldn't sneak past by going around. Every angle is covered, and in the fight, that translates to an enemy that attacks from multiple angles. It forces you to stay mobile, which doesn't let you just pick a corner and camp. Well anyway, what Cerberus is implicitly asking you during the whole ordeal is, have you messed around with this game's combat mechanics yet? Have you practiced your timing when jumping or dodging? Have you tried and experimented with different styles? Have you gotten used to the game's targeting system when using ebony and ivory to chip away its icy armor before you start attacking? Because if you have done all of them, even just passingly, this fight eventually starts to click. It starts to feel like a skill check to see how you respond and read the cues during the fight. You're encouraged to find the rhythm. And here's where it gets really interesting. Because DMC isn't just a regular action game, it's an action game built around a philosophy of how you fight. The style system rewards you not just for winning, but for how creative you are while doing it. Vary your attacks, mix melee and gunplay, stay airborne, never repeat the same move twice, and your style meter climbs from D all the way up to triple S. A first-time player might know the meter exists, but they don't really feel it yet. And then, everything changes once Cerberus happens. The fight is mobile enough, the arena open enough, that you naturally start doing things you wouldn't try on a basic enemy. You start to jump more, you shoot to remove pieces of ice coating the darn thing and keep the distance while repositioning. You start chaining things together. You glance at your meter and you're at A rank, if not higher, and you're not even sure how you got there. That's the magic. Cerberus creates the conditions for you to accidentally discover that you can fight well, and that feeling of accidental mastery is one of the best things the game can give you. Oh, and one more thing. The battle track that plays during the fight is literally titled Suffer. I'll let that sink in. If you're dying over and over and over, the game is essentially blasting heavy metal at you that goes, it's either peak intimidation design or the most unintentionally hilarious thing in the game. Well, to me, maybe a bit of both. That's what a great skill check boss does. It prepares you for what's on the other side. And at the end of it all, it asks you the last real question. Are you having fun? Because if you are, then buckle up. Because there's a whole game of this waiting for you. Let's zoom out for a second and talk about pacing, specifically the game's emotional pacing. One of the things that separates good game design from great game design is understanding that you're not just designing mechanical challenges, you're designing an emotional experience. You're managing how the player feels over the course of the entire game, and defeating Cerberus as your first big hurdle feels incredible and cathartic, at least the first time I beat it years ago. Not because the fight is impossibly hard, well, plenty of other bosses later on that'll give you a much harder time, trust me. I'm looking at you, Nevan. It's because of what the game has built up around it. The size of Cerberus, the spectacle of the arena, the music kicks in, the 3 heads, the ice, and then when you finally whittle down that last bit of health and the victory cutscene plays, Dante gets a brand new devil arm as a reward. He does his little spin, showing off what you can do with it, all of that. So what does the rest of this game have in store? That's a perfect question for a game to make you ask at around the 1.5 or 2 hour mark. It gives you a boost in confidence. Although the game will humble you plenty later, that initial boost makes you want to push forward to see what's next. Cerberus is designed to make you fall in love with the game if you decide to stick to it. And I think it works.
Who knows? I'm not even sure myself.
Devil May Cry 3 is, and I will die on this hill, one of the best paced action games ever made. And a huge part of that is because of decisions like Cerberus. The game understood something that not enough games understand. Your first impression sets the ceiling for the player's expectations. If your early game is boring, players might tune out, even if the late game is incredible. But if your early game can make the player go, oh, this is what we're doing, they're locked in, they trust you. They'll be willing to stick with you wherever you go. Personally, Cerberus is that moment of trust for me. It says, the game is going to be challenging and you might have a bad time later, but it's going to be fair. Everything the game wants you to believe about it, Cerberus communicates it in a single boss fight, and that right there is a sign of a good game design. Look, we spend a lot of time in gaming conversations talking about the hardest bosses, the most complex bosses, the most iconic bosses. Cerberus doesn't often come up in those conversations, and I get it. By the time you've played through DMC3, there are plenty of bosses that overshadow it. I mean, Virgil alone could fill a 3-part documentary with how brilliant the setup and the escalation are. But I still think Cerberus deserves its flowers, because to me, it does something other than being the flashiest boss in the early part of the game. So yeah, that's Cerberus. The first test of many the game has to offer, and one of the most quietly brilliant boss designs in action game history. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go replay DMC3 for the up-billionth time now. If you made it this far, thank you, genuinely. It really means a lot that you're sticking around even though my upload schedule isn't exactly committal nowadays. Anyway, if you want more of this kind of personal musing or short essay in games that do things brilliantly, feel free to subscribe and leave a comment too about your first experience with the Cerberus fight or the whole game in general. And hey, if you haven't played Devil May Cry 3 yet, come on, what are you doing? Go play it. The giant ice dog is waiting.